What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS first look game by game breakdown. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find at WiseTake.com. You can follow on Twitter at Wise_Take. On Instagram at WiseTake without the underscore. And of course on Facebook at WiseTake without the underscore. I don't know why I can never say that right, but I can't. Needless to say, we got some pretty good responses on the breakdown show. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell. We do all kinds of free DFS content on this YouTube channel, including our flagship show, the NBA Wise Stream, which we do an hour and 15 minutes before lock, and we started an hour and 15 minutes before lock. We take you into lock, trying to give you injury updates as late as possible, all the way up until, that final time when the final decision has to be made. And of course, we go over some of our exposures, some of the players we like, more of a position by position type deal. But we wanted to do something that allowed us to go into a breakdown a little bit more in depth, leading up to that show, because the priority of that show is kind of like to react. And there are some situations where we get a lot of downtime after we do the position by position because we're just waiting for news. So we wanted to put something out. So Monday through Friday, we do the NBA Wise Stream for free. On Saturdays, we do it privately for our WiseTake.com subscribers. And on Sundays, we don't do it. As far as this show, we do this Monday through Friday as well. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications. But if you guys can hit the like button goes a long way. It allows us to continue to do the free content. We want to do as much as possible. We want to keep doing it. But we need some likes to justify the time we put in to do the dirty for the nation. So with that said, let's go ahead and kind of go in this. Like I said, we're going to go position by position. So should be pretty cool. Right now, what I have pulled up it's a sheet that I built specifically for this show. What it does is it pulls our projections from WiseTake.com. They're the projections that I use. They're available for WiseTake Nation subscribers. You do get access with those with day passes as well. If you're interested in that, so go check it out at WiseTake.com if you're looking to better your game, become a better DFS player. With that said, we're going to go in order chronologically, right? Keep things easy, keep things fresh. And we're going to get things started with the first game, which is the Miami Heat against the Wizards. And I believe Miami's on the road, so we're going to start with Miami. So we have a 227.5 game total, which is the second highest on the slate. We've got Miami as 8.5-point road dogs. That actually opened up at 9, so it actually did go down half a point. Washington, one of the faster teams. Washington very thin. Washington not good at defense. We could talk about Washington for days. Again, these are the projections over at WiseTake.com for DraftKings and FanDuel. I got them both kind of pulled up. We'll go team by team. These projections I do update throughout the day as we get news, as we do some digging, do some research. We will adjust these projections all the way up until lock. Even when I'm on a show, I still do the projections for the nation. With that said, let's go ahead and get in. So as you can see, we have it sorted by DraftKings point per dollar. That's like the order in which you'll see it. Goran Dragic looking like one of the better plays on both sites. At 5.2 on DraftKings, 5.3 on FanDuel. This is with a 29.75 to just under 30-minute projection, which I believe he's been playing. I mean, he was out for a little while. We were taking advantage of his absence by playing some of the other guys like Kendrick Nunn, etc. But in this last game against Philly, it was an overtime game, but Dragic was the one that played 35 minutes. So it does look like, and it makes sense. You want the veteran over the rookie if the game's on the line, at least at this point. I do think they gave Nunn a decent shot. He just hasn't been consistent enough. But Goran Dragic, I would assume, is going to come in one of the lower-owned Heat, just because we have other point guard options. There's some news we're waiting for with Karl Anthony Towns that could affect players like Jeff Teague, some of these other guys who are similarly priced. But certainly looking like a pretty good option. We know Dragic comes off the bench. People sometimes can be reluctant to go that route. Jimmy Butler on FanDuel is looking a little underpriced. Same thing with Bam Adebayo. They're both in phenomenal spots. They would be the two favorites for me personally if I had to pick right now two players from the Heat to go heavy exposure on. It'd be those two. Bam is my favorite for obvious reasons, right? Number one, his usage this year has been pretty impressive. He's been getting assists. He's been coming close to triple doubles. A lot of that was when Dragic was out. But even so, it's a really good spot for bigs, really good spot for rebounding against Washington, Really good spot for, scoring. Nobody really to stop him. No size aside from Mahinmi. So with that said, I do think Bam is underpriced on DraftKings. I said this last night too. Bam is underpriced on DraftKings, so you love him. On FanDuel, he's power forward eligible, which is pretty clutch. Now, he's not projecting well on FanDuel because his price is significantly higher, but on FanDuel, most players are priced a little bit high, so you'll see a common trend of their point per dollar being a little bit lower. But as you can see, on DraftKings, projection-wise, you'd probably be getting a good amount of Bam and Butler today, and Dragic. But Bam and Butler are the two feature guys. Derrick Jones Jr., looking like a decent value play, more so on FanDuel, projecting for 5.9 on 29.25 minutes. Kendrick Nunn, looking really good on FanDuel. I didn't realize he was 4,500 over there. That's a really low price. Definitely worth considering over there. He is the starter, and he is going to get somewhere between 26 to 30 minutes. And if something happens with Dragic or foul trouble or whatever, he could end up playing more. Or if he's just really efficient. Same thing goes for Tyler Hero. I don't think he's as strong, comes off the bench, and he's a little bit more solely scoring dependent. But he does have a lot of upside because of how good he can shoot, how well he can shoot. So not a guy that's projecting all that well because his price is up. But on FanDuel, there's probably some upside, some meat on that bone. I mean, there is on DraftKings. It's just the minutes up and down. Duncan Robinson, same kind of situation. If we kind of prefer these guys if people are out. But he's cheap. He's going to take his shots. Don't see a ton else here that I'm super excited about. Myers Leonard, someone you can keep an eye on because when he's on the court, he is producing. He gets rebounds. He's basically having another center on the court, but they haven't been giving him the minutes. We know when there's a bunch of injuries, sometimes he'll get some extra run. That has not been the case. So you'll see this dude go for 16, 18 in the first half. You'll feel good about it, and then he'll barely play in the second half, and you'll sit there wondering what the hell went wrong. Kelly Olynyk, very cheap. It just seems like maybe they're phasing him out a bit. It's a good spot if he were to get some minutes, right? Any big against this team is going to be in a good position, which is why I even discussed Myers Leonard. But on a projection standpoint, it's hard to project them for much because of what the minute trends have been. But Dragic, Butler, Bam. My favorite is Bam, and I'm sure Bam will be very popular. I think on both sides because, again, on FanDuel, he's power forward eligible, and the matchup is just so good. Second highest total on the slate. So a lot of Miami players, I would imagine, are going to end up, and you're going to see pretty highly owned today, especially on DraftKings. Let's go to the next. We'll go to Washington on the other side of this game. We like to start with the road teams. You know what I mean? Washington. So Jordan. So we got some questions here, right? We don't know if Bradley Beal's playing. We assume he's in because it's a calf injury. They desperately need him. But until we hear he's out, we're just going to kind of assume he's in. Now, if he's in, now if you notice, we had a lot of players projecting really well on the Miami side. But on the Washington side, it's not so great because Miami is one of the better. They're just not a great team to target against. They're pretty good defensively. They're, you know what I mean? But Jordan McRae at 4K on FanDuel kind of seems ridiculous. Now, the 4.6 on DraftKings is still not bad, but 4K on FanDuel seems a little ridiculous. We have him projected for just under 24 minutes, and that's probably low even if Beal plays. This is a guy that was a part of their rotation before he got hurt. In that last game, they went ahead and played him. Let's see how many minutes they played him. I know he played a lot. He played 29 minutes. So I think it's safe to assume he gets something close to that. I understand Beal was out in that last game. But Ish was there. Ish only played 21 minutes, which was weird. So Jordan McRae looking like one of the stronger value plays, especially on FanDuel. Gary Payton, let's talk about him for. I know I'm skipping over Mahinmi, who I think is viable, but just kind of a blah. You grab some if you're doing 150 teams. Otherwise, you're probably not coming here against Bam. But just for the simple fact that you feel like they're going to need him on the court, I understand it. But again, he's projected for 23.5 minutes because he's just not a huge minute kind of player, at least lately. Gary Payton really depends on Beal status. You can see on DraftKings he's kind of priced out for me. On FanDuel he's still all right. It's just hard to figure. He's not like a huge usage player. He's had 2 games now where he's got 2 out of the 3 games where he's been really playing, where he's had a significant amount of steals, and that's huge, especially on FanDuel. So if Beal is in, I'll still consider him on FanDuel because of the 5.3 price tag, which seems really low, especially because on FanDuel you get extra. The steals are worth a lot over there. So looking more interesting on FanDuel regardless. Maybe I'll be interested again on DraftKings if Beal is out. Because if Beal is out, I think he gets over 30 minutes. But if Beal is in, probably more of a FanDuel only. And probably have to really take a look at that projection because we have a small sample to work with on him. He hasn't played the whole season. So we might have to take a look at his projections. Kind of look and see the sample he's looking at and make some adjustments for things that are probably high variance. So right now he's looking good on FanDuel, but we'll see what he looks like by the end of the night. If Bradley Beal plays, you would imagine he's going to draw some Jimmy Butler. It's just not ideal. The usage is going to be massive, which always makes him worth it. And the other thing on this slate you'll realize is a lot of the studs are out or questionable, or so he may be one of the only studs going, which we'll see later. So that's some significant injury news on this slate. If Beal is out, I also have more interest in Troy Brown. I think Brown is okay either way to try. His usage has been surprisingly high. I mean, that was something we spotted. We played Troy Brown against the Knicks, I think it was. I forget who it was. He went for 50 for us. He was in my core, and when he was only 20% on, I was kind of shocked. I thought he was going to be a lot higher than that. It was a good day. But needless to say, he is taking shots. He's not a guy that you can rely on, solely on peripherals like a Gary Payton. But he is taking his shots. The problem is, you live by the shot, you die by the shot. That's how it's going to go. If he's shooting it efficiently, he doesn't do a whole ton of all this other stuff. But if Beal's in, I think he's just an all right tournament play. If Beal is out, I think the ownership on him goes higher. In that game with Beal out against the Knicks, in that game, okay, so it wasn't. Yeah, he went for 52 against the Knicks on the 23rd. Then played him again recently without Beal and went for 28. I think that's what it was. But he played 38 minutes against the Knicks that day. 38. Shot 4 for 18. He did have 8 rebounds, so maybe I need to take a step back. He did have 8 rebounds. And he's had 8 rebounds, 6 rebounds. So I need to take a step back. Apparently, he's grabbing boards. And he's probably getting slid down because of, how bad of a rebounding team. Everybody's going to step it up, right? There's nobody to grab boards. So my mistake. Troy Brown, probably a stronger play than I'm giving him credit for. But I still feel the same way because when Beal's in, he's getting around anywhere from 28 to 32. Whereas the game Beal was out, he played 38. So I think if Beal's out, they really rely on Troy Brown quite a bit. So I still stand there. IT2, if Beal is in, is all right. Again, in that price range, that 5.4 on DraftKings. 4.7 on FanDuel is pretty low. That's kind of interesting considering he's going to see Kendrick Nunn at times, who I don't believe is a very good defender at this point in his career. With that said, you could argue that Nunn's going to have that same soft matchup on the other side. Either way, here's where I am. IT2 is okay regardless, but if Beal's out, that's really where I want IT2. If Beal's out, the usage looked good. I don't think Isaiah Thomas is at a point where he's going to play 36 minutes or something like that, but if we can get 30, if we can get 30 from him, I think if Beal's out, he's more likely to play 30. And I think that's pretty good because he's got the upside, he's got the usage, he's going to take some shots. So IT2 definitely interesting, more so if Beal's out, but still in play. I don't know what's going on with Ish. I don't know why. They were thin, no Beal, and Ish didn't play much last game. Something seems to be wrong in there with Ish. I don't know if he's hurt and they're not saying nothing, or if he's got an issue with his coach. Maybe something we'll look into after the show. But the price is all right. You would think if Beal was out, he'd get some time to play with IT2, but that wasn't really the case last game. Who else we got here? Jonathan Williams. Huh. So Williams didn't do much, it looks like, huh? Williams played 33 minutes against Detroit in a game that was just a massive blowout. Against the Knicks in a very competitive game, even without Beal, he only played 13. I think if he gets the minutes, he could be a value play, but it doesn't look like that's necessarily happening, right? There's not much from Miami I want, especially if Beal is in. If Beal is out, McRae, I think we could look at regardless, especially on FanDuel at 4K. Gary Payton on FanDuel, but I like him a lot more on DraftKings if Beal is out. Same thing said for Troy Brown. I think he's fine, but I like him more if Beal's out. And the same thing with IT2. So really, Beal. And the other problem is they're already lined up against a tough team, and they're not a good team. You take away their best player, the only player they got left, things can get ugly. Something to consider. All right, let's go to the next game. We've got the Atlanta Hawks against the Orlando Magic. So we'll start with Atlanta. Alex Len, if he plays, is cheap. Look at it. You want to see a team that projects terribly, at least on DraftKings. Look at the Hawks. Their best player on the best projection we have on DraftKings as far as point per dollar goes, is Alex Len at 5.13. Pretty bad. DeAndre Hunter, and the minutes, like you see, like without Trae Young, you would think that we'd have some serious upside. We know Trae Young is out, but the rest, like, we just haven't seen a ton of guys step up aside from John Collins. Now, John Collins is actually projecting decent on FanDuel. I would imagine that he'll be pretty high owned over there. We talked about Bam. I love Bam, but Bam's price was a lot higher. Was not projected nearly as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Collins. You may have to limit him if you don't want a ton of him. It's against Orlando. It's not a bad matchup at all. But Orlando does play very slow. Very, very slow. So you look at these guys like Cam Reddish, I want to believe him, but his price. I mean, maybe on FanDuel at 4-1. He is playing some point guard minutes. Kevin Huerter on FanDuel at 5-1. But on DraftKings at 6K, that's a stretch, man. And you can see the only player that's projected for like significant minutes, the only players projected for significant minutes are like Kevin Huerter, John Collins, and Hunter. It's just kind of tough to gauge. Even Cam Reddish, we played him at 3,900 to 3,800 heavy against Chicago, and he didn't get the minutes he should have. The game did blow out, but he's a guy that they've played in blowouts in the past. So I guess with Trae Young out, they're conservative on him. He's young. He's had some injury issues, but it's so rare that he plays like over that 30-minute mark, or at least deep into it. So there's some concern. But Atlanta not looking great, despite the fact, in a normal situation when a guy like Trae Young, a massive high usage player like Trae Young is out, we just load up on the other team. We look to load up. But number one, they're still finding ways to spread the minutes around. And number two, some of the pricing on the guys we would like has kind of caught up. So again, John Collins on FanDuel is looking pretty solid as one of your spend-up options. On DraftKings at 8-7. That's just a stretch. You have Hassan Whiteside, who we'll talk about later, on DraftKings at like 7-1. You got Bam at 7-6. It's just hard to justify. Even though he's powerful, you can play him there. That helps. So you can, but it's interesting. Also have to worry about the fact that Atlanta's terrible. They just got blown out by Chicago without Trae Young. With that said, let's go to the other side. Let's go to Orlando. Orlando, quick shout out to those of you who are joining us. Those of you who would just join, what up? Just popping in on the chat real quick, gonna say what's up. See some of the questions. If we have time at the end, I'll try to address some questions. So I'll come back in here and look at this. But the main Q&A show will be tonight at 5:45 p.m. Eastern. We start usually. We do a breakdown, then we do some Q&A leading into lock. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the notifications button, bell, whatever it is. This way you're notified when we go live. We do all kinds of free content. And please like the video, guys. Like the video. Likes go a long way. Allow us to continue to do the dirty. Let's do it. On the Magic side, so Mo Bamba, we got to see if he plays. He was out the last game. He's down to 3K. It's not like a huge impact because his minutes are so restricted, but interesting that he's 3K. Terrence Ross projecting well. Very, very low price on DraftKings at 4,200, and at FanDuel it's low too, but on DraftKings I would imagine he projects a little bit higher on a raw points level because of the 3-pointers. You get an extra half a point on DraftKings for those. Ross looks like a fine value play against Atlanta. Markelle Fultz, kind of interesting. You can see that the Orlando side not projecting all that well either. We are talking about, I don't think I went over the Vegas information for this, right? We are talking about a game with a 209 total. This is an Atlanta game, right? With a 209 total. And Atlanta are 10.5 point underdogs. Kind of interesting. But they don't project all that well either. Vooch, I'm sure we could look at. Vooch right now at 29 minutes. That's probably conservative. So I'm sure we'll raise Vooch. He's obviously the standout. Markelle Fultz, I don't disagree. Him and DJ Augustine are splitting things. So nothing more than tournament darts. Even though the price is respectable. And I think Fultz is really stepping up this season. He's starting to finally kind of put things together. He's not a shooter, but he is athletic. He can do other things. Vooch, I'm good with. Again, expect his minutes. Fournier and Isaac, they're all projecting kind of low because so we're gonna have to go in there and kind of adjust those. I do think that Vooch, Fournier, and Isaac are interesting. On FanDuel, the prices are all a lot lower. So especially once we make those adjustments and raise their minutes where they should be, they probably should be around 30, a little bit high, maybe even Aaron Gordon. So there could be some interesting things here. The pricing, it's like a mid-tier thing, but I just don't know how vested I want to get in a game with a 209 total. But Vooch, Terrence Ross for value. Outside of that, I do think that Vooch, Fournier, Isaac, and Aaron Gordon could be interesting. Let me just check and see if there's any other injury news in this game. We know Michael Carter-Williams is out. He's been out. We know that. Okay, so Aaron Gordon is questionable. Oh, Aaron Gordon's expected to be out. Oh, my bad. My mistake. Okay, this is something I must have missed when I went to the gym getting my swole on. He's expected to be out until January 1st. He played 21 minutes and left the game. So, yeah, he's hurt. There you go. That explains. So, I guess, we're just waiting for that information. Now that we have it, this is definitely going to raise Vooch's projection. We're going to have to raise his minutes, also raise his usage. Same thing with Fournier, same thing with Isaac. That's a good amount of shots that now go around. Maybe we get some Wes Iwundu. I don't love that guy. I really can't stand that dude. But he's available at 3,200. Not that you really need it on the slate. There's not a ton of studs at this point, but kind of interesting. Makes Ross even... He's going to stand. He's going to pop even more, I think, because you got to raise his minutes as well. When a player like Aaron Gordon goes out, you kind of have to raise everybody's minutes. It's a shame, too, because Gordon's price was pretty attractive. But, yeah, give a boost to everybody. Isaac, Fournier, Vooch, Ross. This will be interesting if you have access to the WiseTake Nation projections. Check them later. After the show, we'll go through and update some things. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Matter of fact, let's check one thing real quick here. I'm glad I checked that note. Yeah, we'll make some adjustments after the show. All right, let's go on to the next game. Shout out to those of you joining. Yeah, shout out to Badgerland DFS. My man is about doing the dirty to his neighbor before it gets done to him. Hey, it's a dog-eat-dog world, you know. You know what it is. Shout out to T. Cameron, WiseTake Nation member. What's up? You know. I like this. I like this question. I want you guys to answer this. Nick Dillard had a good question. Bam, over or under 44 fantasy points. We'll say DraftKings, because 44 on DraftKings, I think is that that's the minimum point we want him to get to. I think, right? I like that question. Answer that in the chat. Bam, over under 44 DraftKings points. Shout out to Nick. This is a good question. All right, going back to it. Next game. The Brooklyn Nets visiting the Minnesota Timberwolves. Surprisingly low total. It's not low. It's just low for these two teams. Both of these teams playing fast. Minnesota's terrible defensively. They're terrible at everything right now. When they're missing Cat, their whole team is just worthless. Not that they're good with him, but they're at least somewhat competitive at times. Cat's been out for a minute, though. 219.5 total. The Nets opened up 1.5. They're up to minus 3.5. Makes me wonder if maybe they know something about Cat already. Maybe they know some status action on him. With that said, let's go ahead and pull up the Nets. Brooklyn. All right, Spencer Dinwiddie. I could buy into that, actually. Karis LeVert, I think, is going to come back soon. Who knows what Kyrie Irving is going to be back. I don't know what the deal is with him. I mean, I know he's got a shoulder injury. Anthony Davis is playing every single day with a shoulder injury. I don't know what Kyrie's deal is. I mean, he's a weird dude. Shout out to Kyrie. He's from Jersey. Spencer Dinwiddie is Sam. For those of you that have been with us for a minute. Shout out to Cash and DFS. 7.7 price tag. 44.5 projection on 34.25 minutes. And that makes sense. He's a player that's playing significant minutes, Dinwiddie. So I think it's safe to project him for those type of minutes, right? 33 minutes against Houston, 32 against the Knicks, 34, 39. So I think that's safe, especially you give him a little extra because the matchup is juicy. It's Minnesota. He's going to see Jeff Teague. He's going to see some Shabazz. Revenge spot for Shabazz. That'll be interesting. But Dinwiddie looking like a pretty good play on both sides. Only $300 more on FanDuel. Again, remember that guys are going to project the point per dollar is typically going to be a little bit lower on FanDuel because they price a lot of the studs up. They kind of push you more towards that stars and scrubs type build over there. What's interesting is on FanDuel, DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince and Harris are actually projecting pretty well. Whereas on DraftKings, it's mainly Dinwiddie. That is interesting. I mean, DeAndre Jordan's projecting well too. It's a great matchup for him. He just doesn't really shoot. Jared Allen is definitely interesting, especially if Cat is out. If Cat's in, he's still interesting. But if Cat's out, definitely. Against the Gorgie Dieng, the gorgeous one. But yeah, Allen, I believe he has power forward on FanDuel. That's pretty big. Now, power forward is already looking kind of deep. We haven't even gotten to Christian Wood yet. This is some decisions you're going to have to make on FanDuel for sure today. But yeah, Jared Allen, if Cat's out, pretty good spot for him. Garrett Temple continues to be cheap. He's playing big minutes. I don't think he is very shooting dependent, so it is what it is. He's got a very low floor. Against Houston, he played 28 minutes, had a 14.7% usage rate, shot 1 for 9 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3, had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, a block, and a turnover across 28 minutes. So you can see he's taking shots, but he's got to hit those shots or he's not hitting value. But if he is having a day where he's hitting the shots, he's getting the opportunity through minutes. So he's an interesting value play, and he's kind of popping early, it looks like. What the hell did he go? I was just looking. There he is. Yeah, projecting for 6x on FanDuel. Interesting. At 4,900, you can see different story. Very similar projection, but different story. That's how significant the pricing impacts could be. When you plug these things into an optimizer, those things matter a good chunk. Joe Harris, 5'4", a similar story to, what is he, 5'3" on DraftKings, but only 45 on FanDuel. Same thing with Taurean Prince. So the Nets value players are a lot more interesting on FanDuel. And that's a site where you may need it a little more because, again, even with Bam at 9-1, he's considered a stud. He's not really considered a stud on DraftKings. So there are more studs on FanDuel. Therefore, you may need more value. So it's interesting how it's looking. Whereas on DraftKings, DraftKings this season, a lot of the time, it seems like it's always kind of setting you up for a balanced build. At least lately, that's been the trend. They made a pricing adjustment probably maybe a month ago, and that's been the case. But it's kind of fitting accordingly, right? The mid-tier guys are popping, Jared Allen is all right, but Dinwiddie is the main one. I mean, you would figure this could be a really good game for fantasy, but I'm very surprised to see the total so low. Very surprised. Let's look at the Minnesota side. So, again, with this one, like anything else, we're waiting for news. Andrew Wiggins missed the last game. Karl Anthony Towns has missed quite a few games, so we got some things we're waiting for. Wiggins was an illness, so I would expect him to be back. They've had some time off since then. Karl Anthony Towns is a legitimate knee sprain, so who knows? Even when he does come back, is he on a limitation? I'm not really sure. They're not really playing for shit, so I don't see why you would rush him. If he is here, he is cheap on both sites. You can see he has a conservative 29.75 minute projection, but if he was a full go without any minute restrictions, and we raise his minutes, you better believe he's going to project to be one of the better plays on the slate, especially as far as the studs go, in a nut matchup against Brooklyn. As you can see, the projections lead us pretty much the way I feel about this. If Towns is in, there's not a ton I want, except for Towns. And his projection would show that. I'm okay with Wiggins regardless. Wiggins, only because Wiggins' prices come down. He's been playing like dog shit. But, again, a soft matchup. When Cat's out, the usage is there. And his price is pretty affordable on both sides. So, if Cat was out, I would also raise Wiggins' minute projections to about 35 or so. Assuming that the game is close and assuming he's on a quarter ton. Because he's their main player. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's just, you want to make sure your projection reflects the situation. Same thing with Jeff Teague. I'd be willing to raise Teague's minutes, even though he's coming off the bench, even though he's been inconsistent. I'd be willing to raise his minutes if Cat was out. I would say the same thing about Shabazz Napier, Robert Covington. So this is a team that right now isn't looking all that appealing. Even on the minutes, we're not quite sure what the situation is. Whether Towns is there, that's a big factor. If Towns is in, we like Towns. If Towns is out, if Towns is in with no minute restriction, we like Towns. If Towns is out, I think we're going to have to come back, revisit Andrew Wiggins, Jeff Teague, Robert Covington, Shabazz Napier, Gorgie Dieng, who has been balling for the most part in Towns' absence and has that same nut matchup if Towns is out. So definitely a situation we're going to have to come back here and take a look at. Culver got some opportunity, another guy to keep in mind if Wiggins were to miss. So this is a very injury impact, situation that we're gonna have to come back and check out later. Balling. All right, let's see here. Shit. All right, here we go. We've got the Milwaukee Bucks visiting the Chicago Bulls. We have a 219 total that's up from 217.5. And we've got the Bucks at 6.5 point favorites at the moment. Let's see what we got. Milwaukee on the road. Let's do it. Eric Bledsoe's supposed to come back, right? I heard that. I heard Bledsoe's supposed to be back. Let's read if there's a note. Yeah, it's probable. Okay. Bledsoe's really cheap. Not sure what the minutes look like. Bledsoe, that's the thing about Milwaukee that drives me crazy. They should be one of the best fantasy teams in terms of even when all three guys are healthy between Bledsoe, Giannis, and Middleton, and then even more so when one guy's out. And we saw a flash of that with Middleton before they raised his price to kind of a ridiculous point. But the problem is this coach does not. He plays his guys the bare minimum minutes that he has to. If Giannis played 35, it's because he had to play him 35. If Giannis don't have to play 35, Giannis will play 29. His coach would be cool with that. So that's annoying for what we do. They'd probably blow a lot more teams out and they're already involved in a lot of blowouts. Surprised that this total is only 6.5 for Bledsoe back. That makes me feel like Giannis ain't gonna play. We don't want to speculate, but that makes me feel like Giannis ain't gonna play. With Bledsoe back, I don't like Middleton as much, but I still like Middleton if Giannis is out. So if Giannis is in, I'm not really looking at Middleton at all. I am considering Bledsoe regardless because his price is so low. It's an interesting point to buy in on, but we're going to have to hear more on that information. Is he on a minute limitation? We haven't projected for 25.5 now, and he's not projecting terribly. I don't know if I'd be willing to raise the minutes all that much more than that. Maybe 1 full minute, but I'm worried him coming back from an injury. And on top of that, we're talking about a player that's been playing, 25, 32, 23, 27, 20, 23, 26 before that. He's just not a big minute guy because none of the Bucks are. They don't do that. If Giannis is in, it's a phenomenal spot for him. He's expensive, but phenomenal spot against the Bulls. Giannis is, just a prime rebounder. There's no defense to stop him from driving to the hole. He's not a great jump shooter. He likes to get to the hole, and there's nobody on Chicago to stop him from doing that. So if he's in there, phenomenal spot for him. I mentioned Middleton. He just seems kind of priced out. If Giannis is out, I think on FanDuel you'll end up with more of him. But on DraftKings, it's a stretch at 8,100 in Chicago. Unless we knew he was going to play 33 minutes or more. Which if Bledsoe's Middleton, maybe he cracks a little higher. Brolo. Good spot against Chicago. I think FanDuel is very interesting. On DraftKings, the price is scary unless Giannis is out. If Giannis is out, even so, I'm still a little reluctant to go too heavy because we have so many good centers today, but he's got a nut matchup. We do like it. The DiVincenzo George Hill situation is probably jammed up with Bledsoe back, but Bledsoe's looking like the main one. Giannis would be if Giannis is in. We just don't know if he's in. If Giannis is in, probably raise his minute projection a little bit. You don't want to necessarily hope for a blowout, and the line's not even telling us it would be. So I don't know. I feel like if he was in for sure, this line would be 9 or 10. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Chicago did blow out. Chicago has played better this year, so maybe there's something to that. But we'll have to wait for that news. We'll see on the Y stream, or check out my Core Plays article, which comes out later. The Core Plays article I do write for WiseTake Nation subscribers. I update it all the way through as much as I can. Once the show comes, I can't update it a ton. I usually focus on the projections, but the Core Plays article I write at by the time the show starts, those are the players that I have the most of that night. So doing dirties, MME life, shit. So that was Milwaukee, Chicago, right? How could I forget? Let's look at the Bulls. Chris Dunn's been impressive. I'll give him that. The price is affordable, especially on DraftKings, considering he's small forward eligible. That can come in handy. Wendell Carter on FanDuel projecting well, but again, we have a lot of good centers, a couple good ones. But from a pricing perspective, if you just said, F it, I just want to get some pricing. Brolo was soft. We know Brolo was soft. So it's not a terrible matchup for Wendell Carter if he can stay out of foul trouble. On DraftKings, the center pool is real tight. Bam is on center only. But Wendell Carter is power forward eligible. So it's on the table. But on FanDuel, look a little bit more attractive. Zach LaVine, tournament only. at 83 and 8100. He's got the upside, he's got the usage, he got the minutes. It's just the price. He's one of the more scoring dependent studs out there. Similarly to Bradley Beal, like when you play Beal, you don't really expect a ton of the peripherals. You just know the minutes are going to be there and you know the usage is there. Well, Levine's similar to that. So I'm cool for tournaments, game stacks, things like that. Satoransky's price is getting up there, but he's been playing really well. Can't take nothing away from him. He's been playing really well. On FanDuel, you're more likely to get a little bit of him. On DraftKings, maybe tougher to reach, but it's a small slate. Maybe you do reach him here. We'll have to analyze his minutes. We got a projected for almost 33. Maybe we do raise it at 33 and see what it changes. Lauri Markkanen, interesting. If Giannis is in, I'm a little more worried about that. If Giannis is out, I'm cool with it. Kobe White's an interesting value play, so he's kind of been shitted on as far as his rotation goes, but one thing about the Bucks, we know we've been saying it for the last couple of years anyway, at least, is you want to take 3-point shooters against the Bucks, which is one of the reasons I think Levine is interesting. They typically collapse. They don't like to give up points near the basket when Giannis is there, at least, right? So they allow a lot of 3-pointers typically. They'd rather bet that you can't hit the 3. So you'll see they give up a lot of 3-pointers in general, and 3-point shooters will typically have some success. So I do think that Kobe White is interesting. The problem is you really got no idea how many minutes he's going to actually play. So he played, for instance, against Atlanta, right? That was a blowout, but he played 26 minutes. Played 19 against Orlando and sucked. Played 17 against Detroit, still put up a 28. I can see something like that happening today where he doesn't even get the minutes he needed, but he was just super efficient because he's playing a team that gives up a lot of threes. So he's kind of, it just sucks. I wish he was strong. I had a stronger role in this rotation, but so on November 14th earlier this year, he played 35 minutes, right? Put up a 44 on DraftKings against Milwaukee. Shot 9 for 23 from the field, shot 6 for 13 from 3. Against Milwaukee again, he played 25 minutes on the 18th. He was like a bigger part of the rotation then. That's the problem. But put up a 24, which at 3,800 you would gladly take. So again, you can't really say it's anything more than a dart, and you can't really raise his minute projection unless you know. So it's just a weird spot, but probably spending too much time on a player I'm not really going to have a ton of. But we'll see. Maybe something happens here. Chicago is questionable every day. Maybe we get an injury and something opens up. Next up, we got Detroit against Utah. We've got a 216.5 total, down from 218. Detroit opened up as 9-point road underdogs. They're up to 9.5 road underdogs. So Utah looking like they're in a game they should dominate. We'll start off with Detroit. They're going to have the chalkiest player on the slate. You just sit here and you try to talk yourself out of, playing like a player that's going to be as chalky as Christian Wood. But I just can't justify it. Blake Griffin's doubtful. Markieff Morris is out. Those are the main two power forwards. Christian Wood, who they work in at power forward at times when they're playing Markieff at the 3, and that's mainly because Luke Kennard's out and everything. Luke Kennard, let's talk about this though. They're missing Reggie Jackson, Blake Griffin, Luke Kennard, Markieff Morris. Those are 4 players that are heavily in the rotation. I mean, except for Markieff, they're all starters, I think, right? Yeah, believe so. So Christian Wood, I would assume, has to play at least the 28 minutes he's projected for. He's a massive point per dollar player. Even if this game were to blow out, they may have to still play him. Just lack of bodies. So I'm not a big proponent of going like crazy heavy on, like crazy heavy as in like, even when I have a player in my core, I will rarely raise a player over 60, like 40 to 60 is where I consider a player to be in my core. This might be an exception. Very, very hard to get around this. I think the only scenario, I don't think Christian Wood busts as far as returning you value. I think the only scenario where Christian Wood's not in the winning lineup, foul trouble is a possibility. So barring that variance shit, right? If he does play 28 minutes, I don't see him not giving you 6x or better. And he's projecting for almost 9x on DraftKings and well over 8, over 8 on FanDuel. I just don't see like how he doesn't give you at least 6x. So the only scenario he's not going to win a lineup is by taking him. He is at a deep position, power forward, center. It comes down to raw points and like he capture upside. Like there was a slate recently where I was really heavy on Ish. Everybody was. Ish did really well. The problem is that the other point guards went for like 50 and 60. So even though Ish gave you like 7, 8x on his price tag because he went for 30, he only went for 30, and the other point guards went for 50. And that, like, even though Ish returned you to 6x, he actually hurt you that night. That's the only scenario I can really see would, because I don't know if he goes for 50. If he goes for 50, then you're just fucked if you don't have him. But if he goes for 30, there's like, say 30, 33, there's a scenario where the other players at his position all go for 40 and 50 and 60 or whatever. I don't think it's a probable scenario, but it is a scenario. But Christian Wood, I'm going to have a shit ton of, and I just can't really argue a ton against it. Tim Frazier is projecting well on both sites. There are a lot of injuries. Maybe he sees more minutes. Bruce Brown, I don't think has been on the ball as much, but you can see Detroit is thin. We always say thin teams are a cheat code in DFS, and there's no exception here. I think Andre Drummond going to be one of the. He projects really well. I would imagine that on our projections right now, you're projecting for almost 36 minutes. There's no Blake. His point per minute without Blake's like 1.4 and change. His usage goes up to almost 30%. It just a matchup against Gobert. I think that means that the rebounds may not be as easy, but they're still going to be there because he's on the court so much and he's so big. And I'm not worried about Gobert defense necessarily. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. Detroit should be popping in our projections because they're thin. And their guys are going to get a lot of minutes. So I do think it's an interesting place for value. Tim Frazier will look at 23, 24 minute player isn't like a player that I want to hang my hat on because he's not a super high usage, super high point per minute player all the time. But if that value is needed, it's nice to know he's there. And if I'm going to take value, I would like to at least look first at the teams that are really thin. Same could be said for Bruce Brown. Derrick Rose, I think is interesting. He's just not, crazy cheap. But on FanDuel, he's kind of low. But yeah, this is a situation we'll come back to. For sure. Svi, kind of interesting. But Andre Drummond, as far as the studs go, I would expect to be one of the higher owned with no Blake. Christian Wood, though, I haven't seen not the best play on the slate today. On both sides. I don't know. How does he do it? I don't know. But Detroit, a team that I think ownership-wise you'll see a decent amount. On the other side of this game, going to Utah. Jordan Clarkson, man, he balled the other day. I'm always cool with some Jordan Clarkson value. On FanDuel, I don't know. We'll have to see what the position looks like if you look at it from a position perspective. But just looking at the projections team by team, Clarkson looks like one of the more attractive Utah players. I think Donovan Mitchell's price has really gotten up. The usage looks great. We know Conley's out, but the minutes have gotten up to a point where it's kind of crazy. Rudy Gobert's interesting. He doesn't project all that well, but when you factor in Drummond, like I would imagine when Drummond's on the court, Gobert's on the court. So if Drummond sees an increase in minutes, maybe Gobert does. Problem with Gobert is he's not like a super high usage player, right? He's gonna get like a lot of putbacks. He's gonna get boards. All that shit is just, I don't know. I feel like Gobert is significantly cheaper than Drummond, but I feel like I would rather find a way to get Drummond. And if not, we'll talk about Whiteside in a minute. We got Bam. We got all these players that can play over him on DraftKings. So I'm not crazy. Our FanDuel is the same price as Whiteside. I just don't see how you're picking Gobert over Whiteside. But yeah, Mitchell's all right. We understand the usage. We respect it. It's a really good matchup. Detroit is not good against guys like him. Wings that could score, not good against guys like him. I also think Bojan is interesting too. On FanDuel, Bojan's price is pretty low at 5.6. So I don't see anything too great. Joe Ingles' price has come up, I think, on FanDuel. He's not projecting all that well, but the price is interesting. On DraftKings, you're kind of stuck at 6-1. It's just hard, but it's a small set. I wouldn't be surprised if you ended up on him. But Clarkson, sure, a value play. Why not? Doing his thing. They're letting him do his thing. I'm good with that. Last game on the board, we got the Phoenix Suns visiting the Portland Trailblazers. This is your main event, right? Your feature game. We got the highest total on the board. You've got the Suns, who are 4.5-point road underdogs. So Portland's at home and favorite. Two teams that don't play very much defense, but can find ways to score the ball. So this should be fun. This should be fun. We'll start off with Phoenix because they are the road team. So Aaron Baines projects well every damn day because in the beginning of the season, Aaron Baines was doing really good things. These days, Aaron Baines ain't doing those great things. I'm going to have Aaron Baines because he's very cheap, makes for a good value play. On FanDuel, it'll give you a totally different build because I don't think anybody's really paying down at center. And the minutes have been there. It's just more of... I don't think the minutes are a lock. Don't get me wrong. They're not a lock, but he's played 30 minutes, 28 minutes, 30 minutes, 32 minutes. So while with Ayton out, they are playing him, and they're going to need him on the court with Whiteside. Whiteside is not a good defender either. He's just a big body. So I think you can make an argument for Baines, for sure. I mean, he projects extremely well. I don't think you really have to make that much of an argument, but it's a situation where if you would have gone heavy on him the last 4 games, it wouldn't have really done you well. 24.5 DraftKings points, 23, 21.5, 22.75. He would have hurt you. It's a good matchup. They're going to need him on the court. It's just a usage issue. Right? Booker's feeling it right now. Booker's doing dirties. Rubio's not. And he kind of needs Rubio to give him the ball in the right situation. Yeah. Mikal Bridges extremely cheap on DraftKings. Not really sure why he's so cheap. Devin Booker projecting really well on both sides. The price is criminal. Why don't they put any respect on this dude's name? I don't understand. He had like 1 or 2 bad games. Hey, listen, he's having a down year. There's no question. But I don't think that far down. Like, okay, you don't want to put him in in like the upper 8Ks, but to make him 7-1 on FanDuel, you're daring people to play him. This is not even fair. You're daring him, literally. I would expect Booker's ownership to be up there. Ricky Rubio, I'm cool with. His price is coming back down to earth because his performances haven't been as well. He's not projecting all that well, but I think we could end up raising his projection if we're predicting a close game at 32.75. Maybe raise it to 33.5, something like that. That could help. Oubre's been playing well. Forwards against Portland, we like. I'm good with Oubre. The price isn't anything crazy attractive, but he's a hustle player, so there are, the double-double is in his potential. FanDuel, I'm looking more so at 6-1. 6-7 on DraftKings, probably a stretch. Even in this game. Unless there's injury, I don't see a ton else. I mean, Saric is kind of interesting. It's just his minutes have been in flux, kind of up in the air. But it's Baines, Booker, Rubio as the main ones I'm looking at from this game. And I do want players from this game. This game will be very popular. Make no mistake about it. Highest total on the board. Make no mistake about it. So the Portland side, we get to Whiteside. Look at this. So look how well Portland projects. And this has been a trend for them every single day because their prices haven't caught up necessarily to the usage and everything else that they've seen, right? I got to fix. I just realized I never added the color coding for the FanDuel salaries. My bad. Disrespect. But Whiteside, not sure why they lowered his price. He's projecting for 5.6x at 8,500 on FanDuel. So 7-1 against the Suns, a team who's horrible against centers? That's just not fair. Carmelo Anthony, projecting really well on both sides as well. He's playing big minutes. His usage is fine. He's taking shots. He's got a good matchup against Phoenix. Bazemore, they tried to get different and play Skal against the Lakers. That didn't work. Skal got hurt very quickly, and Bazemore ended up getting the minutes anyway. I hate Bazemore. I can't stand this dude. Couldn't stand him on the Hawks. Not like a personal thing. Just like professionally, I hate him. He just makes my life difficult because he's cheap a lot of the time. He's shown flashes of upside, but his floor is so fucking low. But they are thinner, one of the thinner teams as well. And so their guys are playing big minutes. So now with Skal out for a few games, Baze could once again see upwards of 30-plus minutes. CJ McCollum playing really healthy minutes as well. So has obviously Dame. The pricing hasn't reflected it. Portland's going to be popular because, as you can see, they project very well. They're going to project well for multiple projections, not just ours. Right now, the usage the usage is so concentrated on these teams to those 4 players: Whiteside, Melo, CJ McCollum, Lillard. All 4 of those guys. The usage is heavily concentrated. It's a soft matchup, the highest total game on the board, and the pricing on all these players for their respective matchups are too low. So expect Portland to be very chalky. And with that said, I'm also going to want Portland. I know they're chalky. We don't want to play too much of the chalk. I expect one of these guys to shit the bed. I don't know who just yet. Maybe Melo. Maybe Dame. Maybe McCollum. You feel like one of them will. Probably Baze. I mean, Baze. If I really had to bet on it, I'd say Baze. But even that wouldn't be that safe of a bet because he's so cheap. But with that said, I think this is a team you're going to want exposure to, a good amount of exposure to. with Scal out, that's Whiteside's main backup is gone, Melo's main backup is gone. Technically, you can argue that Bazemore's is, because I've seen them do lineups where Melo gets slid up to the 3 and Scal plays the 4. So now they can't do that. They need Melo at the 4. So Portland will be a team we get a lot of, no doubt. And they're going to be popular. Expect that. Christian Wood will be extremely popular. Doing dirties. That's going to do it for me, Nation. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I see a bunch of guys in the chat. I got to run, so I can't get in too many of the questions. I will review these. I see Rubio triple-double tonight. Possibly. Tournament, baby. Tournament play. Let's go. I think that game is going to do dirties for sure. But I appreciate all you guys, man. If you can like the video, it goes a long way. If you need more DFS up, you want to join a winning DFS community, come hit us up at WiseTake.com. If you want these projections, I'll be updating these projections throughout the day. They're available at WiseTake.com. You can download them and upload them into the optimizer of your choice, whatever you use. I personally use Fantasy Cruncher, but you can upload them to whatever optimizer you use. That's how they are designed. So I appreciate y'all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We've been lucky with these shorter slates when I do these. We'll see what I'm sure I'm going to run into a big-ass slate, and these game-by-games are going to kill me. But it is what it is. We do it for the nation. And I'll continue to do it for the nation. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation. As always, good luck.
Yeah.